So,
What is
What?
your leg condition called?
What? I have phosphatemic rickets. I think how it works is that my kidney filters out all the calcium in all the foods and stuff that I eat, and so I don't actually absorb any calcium in my system, and so I grew less and I grew weaker. I was diagnosed with it when I was born, or at least like a few months after I was born, and since it's mainly hereditary, they think that my great uncle had it. He always had like problems with his legs, and he was never diagnosed with it, but it would really make sense for the symptoms that he would have, that he had, like with problems with his legs, and he had stunted growth like I did. So we think I got it from like him, or it's like some super recessive gene in the gene pool. The main symptoms that like I get even like now is just like pain in the legs when I use them too much. I had a lot of stunted growth as a kid. I was very short compared to everybody else until I started getting on medicine, and then I started sort of, at least my bones were growing in a normal way. My first surgery was in 5th grade, and afterwards I couldn't walk. I think it was probably around 5 months, maybe 6, where I was just wheelchair bound and needed help with everything. I eventually went back to school after a couple months, but that was the worst of it. Every time I got surgery after, in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they got progressively less severe. I think the second time I probably only had to stay in for like 3 months, and then the next one was like only a month, and then the next one was like only a couple weeks. The surgeries entailed putting like little growth plates in my legs to help them grow better and straighter and more normal. The first couple were just putting them in, and then the next, like the last half, were them taking them out, and so those were a lot easier to recover from because, you know, I was already grown. I think I still have one in this leg. Oh yeah. I started medication after the first surgery. I took like, I think it was calcium and phosphorus, because phosphatemic rickets, it was a lack of phosphorus. So I think I had to take like 6 pills a day, probably more actually. And there was only 2 different kinds, but I had to take like 4 of one of them and then like 2 of the other one in the morning and the evening. But I had to take the other one that I had to take 4 of. I had to take 1 at lunch and then like 2 at night. It was a little hectic. But then I got on this new treatment that is just bi-weekly injections that do the same thing. In freshman year, I had to be in a wheelchair for a different reason. I had done marching band. From that, I was experiencing more pain than normal. I actually went to the doctor, and so I actually turned out to have 2 mini fractures in both of my legs. I had to be in a wheelchair for almost the entirety of sophomore year. I wasn't wheelchair bound, I could still walk, I just needed to be in a wheelchair in like school and just walking far distances in general, because I had to heal up the fracture, so I couldn't put stress on them. So with that year, plus all the times I had to recover from surgery, probably close to 2 years in total. So some of the problems that I faced was mostly, there was another girl in a wheelchair, and she was wheelchair bound in school, and she had very reckless abandon as she was going down the halls. And so she would like hit people and like run over their toes and stuff. They'd be like, "What the heck, man? Why did you run over me?" And I'm like, "What? I didn't hit you." And they're like, "Yeah, you did." And we had similar haircuts, and we both wore glasses and we were both in a wheelchair, so it was pretty easy to mix us up. So I would get accused of hurting people a lot, but I was very careful when I was in the hallways in school. But other than that, it was just a lot of like, especially during the first couple surgeries where I was literally wheelchair bound, I couldn't stand at all. It was just a lot of trouble, like bathing, getting anywhere that wasn't on the first floor of a building. Just normal stuff like that. There's no real misconceptions or unknown problems. Like it comes with everything that you would think being stuck in a wheelchair would be. My backpack straps would get dirty sometimes. It's like the little dangly things off the edges get to the wheels. Usually people perceive me as like normal, just like a short guy, unless I'm obviously in a wheelchair or crutches or something. That's usually where people like make not necessarily judgments, but just, you know, preconceptions and stuff. That's usually when people see me differently, is if I'm obviously injured or something. But other than that, I only have like a slight limp when I walk, or I've sort of worked around it, but it's kind of uncomfortable too. So sometimes when I'm tired or not thinking, I'll limp around because I have uneven legs, because again, they grew weird. Well, being short, people only treat me differently for being short, because for a while I was like really short, especially before the surgeries and stuff. And so, you know, there's a lot of people that are, you know, either average height or just a little taller, you know, rest their arm on my head when they're talking to me or something, and, you know, they do the short people meme where they're like, hey, this is how you talk to short people and stuff like that. But you know, I also get called a short king, so it kind of evens out. Yes, you know, I experienced a lack of physical capability, but instead of that making me feel left out of what other people were doing physically, it made me more happy when I did stuff that wasn't physically active. So, you know, playing video games, I, you know, geared towards taking music lessons instead of taekwondo, or like I wanted to get a new computer instead of a basketball hoop or something. More recently though, I've tried to learn how to like skate and stuff like that, and try to be more active, because I know that after I get out of the house, go to college or whatever, and live on my own, like I can't just be idle as much as I want. I have to do stuff and do what is uncomfortable for me, and do more active things, and be physical, because the world is like, you're not supposed to be active because you have this disease or whatever. When I push against that, it sort of empowers me to try and be more fit, I guess. So in 6th grade, I first started piano and bass lessons, and I sort of stopped doing after-school taekwondo, which is what I did for the years prior. I sort of swapped them out, and I really found a love for playing music, and found a lot of inspiration and fun in doing something that I could do. I actually go to this lesson place, School of Rock. They've taught me a lot, and I've been able to work with a lot of other young musicians, and even like the best of the young musicians in my local area. When I'm at that place, everybody there is learning an instrument. Everybody there knows how to play instruments. And sort of being around them, I found their personalities cool. So I'm like, I'm gonna learn what instrument they play. And so I branched off to guitar, singing, drums. In middle school, I started playing flute as well, because that was fun. So I did a lot to try and expand my horizons when it came to creativity, because I realized that the most fun people that I was around were the most creative and the most talented. Part of the program at School of Rock is that they let us, they like rent out venues and stuff for us to go play at, you know, just local bars and stuff like that, where they have a little tiny stage for us to perform on. It's probably one of my biggest forms of empowerment, because it's that physicality that I was never able to reach, where I'm able to, you know, I'm able to rock out and move and dance on stage. it blends that with the things that I love, which is music. I'm able to do both of those things, which it's something that both empowers me and something that I can enjoy and something that's reasonably attainable. You don't need to be an athlete to be a good stage performer. You just need to be able to move,